Good evening, my name is Kevin Zervakos and this is my persuasive speech. This is my PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to zoom in, and behind me is my audience. How young is too young? When we hear the opinion of those who believe certain individuals are too young to be tried as adults, we should ask ourselves, how young is too young? I contend that age alone should not be the sole determining factor in whether a juvenile would be tried as an adult. We should also consider the severity of the crime and the record of that individual. Would you want an 18-year-old murderer living free in your neighborhood simply because he or she was too young to be tried as an adult when the crime was committed? Over the past 15 years, I've worked with teenagers in one capacity or another. When I was a house father at a children's home in Arizona, I encountered many children who had committed no crimes and were considered high-risk adolescents for future crimes. Although they all had similar backgrounds, some of them did eventually commit crimes, and some did not. More recently, I served as a drill instructor at a county juvenile facility, where I became intimately familiar with the legal aspects of juvenile crime. Through these experiences, I've developed a very firm opinion regarding the justification for juveniles being tried as adults. First, I'm going to share my perspective about feasibility of basing legal policy on age alone. Then I will ask you to consider not only the seriousness of the offense, but also the effects of the offense have on our society. And finally, I will talk to you about the child's decision-making history, which demonstrates culpability. In recent years, there's been much debate about setting age limits and what those age limits should be. One of the boys who lived at the children's home, we'll call him Mike, he left when he was 15 to go live with his extended family. Shortly thereafter, he stabbed a 12-year-old girl multiple times and left her for dead. Hours later, he was arrested and eventually tried as an adult. According to a report on ABC News, the advocates who would agree with what happened to Mike and say juvenile offenders are criminals who happen to be young, not children who happen to be criminal. In fact, the harsher policies that some states have employed since the 1990s spike in juvenile crime seem to be working. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services graph reflects that since the middle of 1995 until 2003, there's been a decrease in juvenile crime. Mike's case influenced my opinion in that direction, as well as the event. If the event is serious enough, adult trial should be mandatory for any child over 15. The OJJDP reports that many states exclude certain offenses from juvenile court altogether. After stabbing the girl repeatedly, Mike walked across the parking lot, jumped in the swimming pool, and joined some friends. He acted mystified when he heard the sirens, he saw the ambulance, and watched police investigate. Later, he was surprised to find out the girl had lived and identified him as the attacker. Development psychologist Lawrence Steinberg would say Mike was too immature to understand the consequences of his actions. A recent survey suggests that most Americans would agree that youth treatment and rehabilitation over incarceration. I agree that before the age of 15, rehabilitation is the best option. However, beyond that age, if a child commits a crime, and it's a viable crime, and it's severe enough, especially if the delinquent is a repeat offender, then they should be tried as an adult. Mike had a history of breaking the rules in school and run-ins with law enforcement. Although he'd never killed anyone, he had a well-documented history of killing and maiming animals. Because of this, the courts decided that Mike was to be tried as an adult, and I agree. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, recidivism or reoffense rates of young people range from 12% to 55%. These statistics should leave us with no doubt. Those reoffending adolescents who are over the age of 15 and commit serious crimes should be tried as adults. Although no law will eliminate crime, it is clear that the stiffer the laws are, the more deterrent they are. So, I advocate adult time for adult crime. In the interest of our society and the victim, it would be criminal to do anything less.